Hey everybody, this is Caryn,
And this is Jill.
and you're watching. You cursed me!
What did I do?
Last stupid time you said watching. My mouth just tried to say the same thing.
Forgot I did that.
They are listening to Scream Girl Squad. I'm giddy because that movie was so ridiculous.
So great.
So tonight we played another round of let's see what we can find to watch on a streaming platform in 5 minutes or less.
Mm-hmm.
Which it leads to some interesting results.
It certainly did today.
Today, it led us to a 2019 film called Killer Sofa.
On Amazon Prime.
On Amazon Prime. It's free on Prime. You don't even have to pay to watch it.
Which I'm a little grateful. We watched it for free.
I'm going to be honest. Might have watched it for money.
Okay, I probably would have to if I was with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hardcore will be talking about this for years.
I couldn't wait for it to end. For two reasons. One, its novelty wore off after a little while, but also because I just wanted to talk to you about it so badly.
Yes. Well, it was so hard. I kept making comments while we were watching, and then I would feel bad. I was like, no, wait, save it.
So let me tell you all what made us fall in love with this movie, or at least be enamored with it enough to want to watch it. Number one, it's called Killer Sofa. I mean, come on. The poster has a picture of a recliner that has a big mouth with like jagged teeth on it. And the tagline is, "Don't sit on the furniture." And the description is, when a killer lazy boy chair falls in love with a girl, it's up to a disgraced Jewish rabbi and a couple of broken-hearted detectives to figure out how to stop the bloody carnage that will follow. And it had me at when a killer lazy boy chair. That's it. That's it. That's all I needed.
But you throw in a disgraced rabbi, and it just makes it better.
Yeah.
Which, well,
Broken-hearted detectives. So there's a scene in The Simpsons where like they have a fake ID, and so they go to see Naked Lunch in the theater, which is rated R. It's based on a William S. Burroughs novel that I could not get through for the life of me. But they come out of the theater and Nelson Muntz says, "I can think of at least two things wrong with that title." And that's kind of how I feel about all of this, because number one, it's a lazy boy. That's
Right?
not a sofa. A sofa sits 3 people or more.
So the very first item of trivia on IMDb says, the movie was originally titled My Lover, My Lazy Boy,
Oh, man.
but the production feared being sued by the Lazy Boy Furniture Company. After this, the Stephen King-esque title The Furnishing was then considered
Oh, my
until
gosh.
finally someone came up with Killer Sofa.
Why did they not stick with the furnishing?
My Lover, My Lazy Boy, man. Like, I don't think I'll ever think of it as anything else when I think of this movie.
I could see their concern, though. Didn't Aqua get sued by Mattel over that Barbie girl song that they
Oh,
made?
maybe.
Okay, so I can see. Okay, but moving on to stuff that's wrong with the description. Broken-hearted detectives, there's like, they don't explore that hardly at all.
No, little tiny bit.
And they don't actually explore the disgraced Jewish rabbi angle either. Like,
No, we didn't really know he was a rabbi until like 3/4 the way through the movie.
yeah, when he was holding a mug that said, "Trust me, I'm a rabbi."
Yeah.
And they don't really talk about like what was his journey. I'm really interested in this man's journey, and they don't give it to us.
They don't, no backstory, and I wanted a little bit more.
Yeah. So this film was written and
This
directed
steaming
by
pile of hot garbage.
it's a steaming pile of like amazing garbage.
Entertaining
Yeah.
hot garbage. Yes.
Like hot garbage that can sing and dance. And so you're kind of interested, like you're going to watch it for a while. It was written and directed by Bernie Rao and stars people that I suspect are pretty big in the New Zealand film scene, but who I had never seen before. Jed Brophy, Pimi O'May, Natalie Morris, and Jim Baltache. It was filmed in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand.
That's
I just want to do
need
it.
to talk about it.
Okay.
So this movie starts out with a very hairy fella. Like one of those dudes that looks like he's wearing a sweater when his shirt is off. And he's doing some sort of chant, some sort of ritual. There's candles. He's chanting.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of stuff
A
that
bunch
looks
of
like
religious looking relics.
Yeah, it all looks like it was bought at Hot Topic in like 1997.
Yep. And then abruptly, it cuts to a man. A different man is strapped to a table in what can only be described as like back alley surgery room.
Oh, yeah, it's got like the Dexter-ish plastic wrap all over everything.
And he's like strapped to this table with a gag in his mouth. And he looks a little nervous, but not like as terrified as you should be if you're in a back alley surgical room. And this guy comes in wielding like a bone saw, no mask. No, he's clearly not a doctor.
Oh, I'm not a doctor.
But he has a bone saw.
Yeah. Well, like an electric one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it does like the back and forth shimmy thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Picture that if you were carving a Thanksgiving turkey with like the fancy electric carver.
Yeah,
that's
like
what he
that.
had.
Uh-huh. And he comes out and, holds it up and revs it up a few times. And the guy looks a little nervous. And then he starts like approaching him with the saw. And it pans away and you just see like splashes of blood. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yep. So, something got cut off of somebody.
Yep. And, starts out strong.
And then,
oh yeah,
kind of off to the side,
it zooms in on a reclining chair, not a sofa, a reclining chair with these buttons,
like super reflective,
huge buttons sitting in the chair that just look like eyes.
If you have not seen this movie, whether or not you're going to watch it, like right now, I insist that you Google this movie so that you can see what this ridiculous lazy boy looks like, because it has those two stupid eyes and then there's like a fold in the upholstery that kind of looks like a mouth.
Yes.
And it somehow looks kind of angry. It's
a little menacing.
Yeah. They did a pretty good job making it menacing. But as soon as it popped up on the screen, I couldn't even contain myself.
Yep. We immediately started hysterically laughing. So it was great. Then it cuts to 3 people who open the storage unit and like it smells horribly, right? And they're all like, oh, gross, whatever. And they start walking around. They see all this weird stuff in the storage unit. They finally find this reclining chair. And it's all chained up against a wall with a note that says, deliver to Francesca.
These 3 characters are weird for so many reasons. Like, they walk into the storage unit. They're all concerned about the smell. One of them's, like, touching all the goofy artifact thingies. None of them seem concerned about the blood anywhere.
Nope.
And how did they get there? Are they friends of the man who insisted he get cut up? Or
no idea.
And then they basically never show up again.
Yeah.
Like one of them does, but anyway.
It's really bizarre. It cuts to a girl dancing on stage. And everyone in the room is staring at her like she is the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, this was the first time that the quote from 10 Things I Hate About You popped in my head when they're trying to get Heath Ledger to date Kat. And they're all talking about how they're in love with Bianca. And he's like, what is it with this girl? Does she have beer-flavored nipples? And like, that's what you had to, because everyone is just like oogling this girl who's dancing. Everyone, men, women, children, like it didn't matter. Everyone was just like, oh. Like they've never seen a girl before. It was insane.
It was such a weird scene, too. It was all like red in the background and kind of smoky, and she's all fluid, and the music is strange. It was
very uncomfortable. Yes. You were just like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, they gave you no explanation. They were just like, here's this girl dancing, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like, So then it cuts to the girl who was dancing sitting with a friend of hers, and these police officers show up. They start asking her about her ex-boyfriend, Frederico.
Mm-hmm.
I know this conversation, again.
It was amazing.
So weird. So they're talking about Frederico, and they're like, he was just really dedicated. That's what Francesca was saying. And her friend was like, no, he was a psycho stalker. And she's like, no, he was just really attentive. And they're like, but you got a restraining order against him. And she's like, yeah. Like, she was trying to justify his obsessive behavior. But yeah, she just kept saying, he was just really dedicated. And her friend was like, no, he was obsessed with you. So it was just a really weird conversation. And the whole time the cops are talking to her, like, there's a man cop and a woman cop. And the man cop is just like oogling her. And so they're walking away and they're talking about how everyone falls in love with her or whatever. And the man cop's like, oh, I get it. And the woman's like, I don't get it.
So inappropriate.
So it's like immediately you're like, okay, this old man is obsessed with her and he just met her. So once again, what is it with this girl? Yeah. So they were talking about how they had to identify Frederico just from his feet because that's all they could find.
Yeah, that's all.
So basically left. They're like, your ex got cut up into little pieces. All we could find was his feet. What do you know about that? And she's like, he was a very dedicated boyfriend. But I had to get a restraining order.
Yeah.
It was a very strange conversation. So then it cuts to the three people delivering the chair. And as they're pulling the chair and like loading it into the truck, the chair somehow catches one of the girl's hands and it gets all cut up and bloody.
Yeah, it does that thing that I'm totally terrified of happening all the time. So you know how when the little foot dealie comes out, the hinges like kind of make a diamond shape, and they're just right there ready to chop off everything. Kelly and I just bought a reclining sofa. It's not here yet. And I'm like, it's not even here yet. And I'm already like, okay, what part of us is going to get cut off like in this stupid thing?
And yep, girl's hand gets caught, all cut up. Gross. So they send her on her way. It cuts to an old man. They're trying to deliver the chair to this old man. How old would you say this man is? Just start this off.
I am going to say he is 75 or older.
He's at least 75. 75 to 80, I think is a fair assumption.
Yeah.
He's got a beard, long hair, looks like a hippie.
Yeah.
You expect like incense burning in the background and...
Wasn't there?
Oh, there might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he looked like a hippie.
Yeah.
And he's like, Francesca doesn't live here, man. Like, sorry, you're in the wrong place. So he goes out to see what they're trying to deliver for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And he makes eye contact with the chair and freaks out.
He has a moment with this chair. It's like he's compelled to move forward and put his hand on the upholstery. This was so confusing.
Yes.
I kept looking at Jill like, do you understand what's happening?
So he like is in the woods suddenly and it's very shiny. Everything is shiny in the woods. Like, so you know it's a dream, right? And there's like a girl just running through the woods and he's like hiding in the trees and watching this girl run in the woods. And then like there's a flash of a flower and then like he just wakes up and he's standing there in the street looking at this chair all terrified.
Yeah. And the setting seemed like medieval-ish or Renaissance or something, like definitely like old-timey England or something.
And he's just standing there in the street horrified and he's like, get out of here. Like, he doesn't want anything to do with the chair.
Yeah, he like passes out. It's an extreme experience for this older gentleman.
Yes. And then the delivery people just leave. And that's it.
Good luck, old man. We're taking this chair.
So then it cuts to Francesca, who is the dancing lady from the beginning that everyone's obsessed with. And she goes home with her friend and they pull up and there's this like douchey looking guy sitting in the reclining chair. And her friend, whose name is Maxie, like Maxi Pad, her friend Maxie says, why are you even with this guy? And she says, I like him because he's not clingy. That's it. So she's dating a douche who doesn't like her, and she's all over it.
Yeah.
She loves that. And Maxie says, that's because he's gay.
Yep. Francesca it rolls right off. It's like she doesn't even acknowledge this statement.
Yeah. She's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow me around, so I like him.
Yeah.
So right away, you're like, ooh, healthy relationship.
But to the boyfriend's credit, he single-handedly moves the recliner up a flight of stairs.
He does. Well, and that's what Maxie says. Do you want me to help you move the chair into the house? And she's like, no. Boyfriend will help. I can't remember what his name is. TJ. TJ will help. She starts telling TJ about her ex-boyfriend, Federico, and how he's dead. And the ex-boyfriend's just like, well, that's too bad. Anyway, like he has no cares.
Oh, no.
And Francesca's like, will you stay with me tonight? And he's like, nope, I have plans. And he leaves. Like, it just really sets up that he's just not that into her. And that's what she likes. Well, and really, he's like, nope, I gotta go. And she kind of smiles like, okay.
She's like, are you sure you don't want to stay and take a shower with me? And he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. And she's like, huh. And as he's like, no, I'm not going to stay with you. I'm leaving. And he like walks off towards the door, and the camera zooms in on the chair, just like staring at him as he leaves.
With his like beady button eyes.
It's the first of many just straight up close up shots of this chair, like staring people down. And it's just amazing. And you just know right away, you're like, yes, this is everything I wanted and more.
Oh, I'll say it right now. Every single scene where the chair was actually on camera was amazing.
Magical. So good. So it cuts to the old man who's doing some research about this angry chair that he touched. And he finds documentation that talks about a Dybbuk.
Mm-hmm.
And then the old man is talking to a woman who we later find out is his girlfriend, Ashanti. He's like, I saw this vision. It's a Dybbuk, whatever. And Ashanti's like, you have the gift like your father. So you have to assume his dad was some sort of clairvoyant.
You have to do a lot of assuming in this movie.
A lot of assuming because they give you nothing.
Yeah, they'll just like lay something out and you gotta be like, okay, I guess I can work that into the picture that I'm kind of putting together.
Somehow that makes sense. So yeah, he's got the gift like his father. So then Maxie shows up at Francesca's. Francesca is in the shower. She turns off the shower water. She puts a towel around herself. She has not exited the shower yet. And she turns around and there's someone standing there in a clown mask. And it's her bestie, Maxie. Caryn and I have been friends since we were 5. I would not wait for her in the bathroom while she was getting out of the shower.
And I thank you for that.
And I just feel like not very many people would.
Yeah.
And that was a big, like, the hell are you doing moment for me? Because
I'm not a big fan of seeing my friends in the nude.
No.
Yeah.
I'm good without
I'm good without it, yeah.
So then the girls sit on the couch and watch a movie. The laptop is, like, propped up on the recliner as they're watching a movie with, like, their feet up on the recliner.
So it's like the chair is watching them over the top of the laptop?
Like watching them watch the movie sitting in the recliner. And then while they have a conversation that I took note of thinking it would come into play later, and it never did. But the friend says very sadly, I think the antique store might close. We're not getting any business. And Francesca's like, you should just focus on your music. You're really talented. So I assumed that at some point, Maxie was gonna become a musician or something. Nope.
No.
That was never a thing. They just needed to give Maxie a purpose, I guess.
In hindsight, I think that the antique store reference, there'd been like a couple clues that I didn't pick up on at all until it explicitly told me that the old man Jack is Maxie's grandfather.
Yeah, I think that was their way of trying to tie it together, but it did not work. And it just, the conversation set up something that you thought would be important and then it wasn't.
Well, here's the problem with this scene. The chair wasn't in it. It was just these two girls
talking about crap and nobody cares. Yep. So then the friend leaves. Maxie's walking to her car and the street light flashes as she's walking to her car. And you're like, oh, something's going to happen. And then Maxie watches Francesca through the window combing her hair.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, cool. Maxie's obsessed with her too. Because everyone is.
Yeah.
And then she sees the chair glaring at her out a different window.
I laughed so hard.
So funny. And she like kind of gives it a funny look and looks back at the window and the chair's gone. And so she like, you can tell she's like, okay, well, that can't be real. That didn't happen. But you're like, oh, it happened.
It was so amazing. It's like the chair was standing up or something.
Yeah.
The way it's like
And just
looming
like,
at the window. I feel like that maybe when they were writing this movie or storyboarding it, that they were like, all right, let's like write it as though it's a ghost / a slasher. And then we'll take out all the ghosts and the murders and we'll put in a chair. And it worked brilliantly.
Pretty much. Also, the movie trivia said that through the whole movie, they used this one chair and it cost them $100.
I want to see a making of this movie. When the chair was standing there at the window, did they like hoist it up? Like a lot of recliners, the top comes off sort of like the back does.
Yeah.
So I just pictured two people like holding the back of the recliner at an angle so that it looks like it's like lurking in the window.
I am positive that's what happened. And it's magical. So then this thing happens where Francesca is alone in her apartment with the chair.
Oh my God.
And she sits in the chair in a manner that can only be described as seductive.
Mm-hmm.
She's in a little nightie. Her legs are stretched out all long before her. And then it starts to get weird.
She's caressing the upholstery and puts on music, and
I think the music just magically starts playing. She does not put the music on. The music just starts playing, and
she gets
the lights turn red.
Yeah.
She has quite the intimate moment with the chair.
Off camera.
Off camera.
God.
I mean, like, you don't really see anything but her, like, groping at the chair and, like, quite the close-up of her hand grasping the handle and pulling so the feet come out and, like, rubbing her finger along the handle. And just the whole time you're like, I'm real uncomfortable.
It went on for so long.
So long. And, like, nothing really happened to make you uncomfortable, but you were still very uncomfortable. So then she wakes up and it was a dream. And you're like, oh, thank goodness that didn't really because there was no, like, setup to that. Like, how did she get from normal human to, like, making out with a chair?
The framing of the scene was ridiculous, too.
Yeah.
It is, like you said, it's totally abrupt. And then it's framed so the chair is exactly in the middle. And she sits down with a cup of tea and then kind of poses.
Yes.
and then gets busy.
So she had a sex dream about the chair.
So after she wakes up from the dream, it cuts to the chair and there's a ghostly lady kind of standing behind it. It's the same lady that the old man saw in his vision thingy.
No explanation. Cuts to the old man. He's doing research on the Dybbuk. And he's on this website that they visit several times throughout this movie. Of this, we'll just call him an occult expert.
Mm-hmm.
We're assuming.
Yeah.
But he looks like what you would picture an occult expert to look like.
He looks like a heavier version of the magician that Jen dates on the IT Crowd.
Yes, he does. So he's got like a goatee and he could be wearing a cloak and that would be totally normal.
Yeah. He looks exactly like what you would expect him to look like.
Yeah. So he talks about, he says, don't ever touch the Dybbuk. The weak-willed mind will be the first to succumb.
Yeah, and only go up against one if you're in perfect health. And as he's watching, the old man is like clearly struggling and like trying to get the cap off of an aspirin bottle.
He's clearly having a hard time. And he's like freaking out all at the same time. Like you can just tell he's like, well, crap, I'm doomed. So after Francesca's sex dream about the chair, she wakes up and she hears noises coming from the kitchen.
And Jill says, oh, did the chair make her breakfast?
Totally sarcastic. But then she walks into the room and there's like tea light candles everywhere. And the chair is holding a plate of breakfast and a cup of tea. And we lost it. There was no...
It's not even like you might be picturing like a sloppy plate of food, but it's holding like cookies arranged next to some type of flour and like a whole bunch of other little cookies around like a cup of tea.
Yeah, it was very fancy breakfast.
Give the chair credit. Like,
the chair did good work.
yeah.
So yeah, the chair made her breakfast and lit some candles, as you should after an intimate evening.
That's true. That's what a lady likes.
Yeah. So then TJ comes in and she thinks he made her breakfast.
He totally takes credit for it. Like, he doesn't refute. She even thanks him. She's like, oh, thanks so much for baking me cookies. And he's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So then he's standing next to the chair and she goes off to make him breakfast, which she like pours cereal in a bowl. Like, it's nothing exciting. So he stands there and he's eating one of her cookies off the plate. And he goes down to reach for another one and the chair has moved. So the plate is no longer within reach. And he like looks a little confused and looks over at the chair and he's like, like you could tell he was like, nah.
He writes it off as, I'm just too drunk from the stag night that I went to.
Yes.
The chair's real possessive. Oh, pardon me. To use Francesca's words, it's dedicated.
Dedicated. It's a dedicated chair. So Gravy is looking at pictures on his computer of like random children's drawings to which they give no explanation.
He mentions later that he has kids.
But like a lot later.
Yeah.
So you're just like, he's looking at children's drawings and then looking at stuff about the murder. Mm-hmm. Like, no transition.
The stuff he looks at about the murder is amazing, though.
Amazing.
Because there's like a voodoo doll that someone is clearly...
Francesca's face on it.
It's like they took a printed out glossy photo and cut her face out with scissors and taped it to a voodoo doll. It was a very professional level.
Yes.
Clearly Federico had his own Etsy store.
Francesca is meeting with the cops. And they talk about how she has lots of restraining orders against people.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, people just get a little obsessed with me. And they're like, and you have different addresses for every restraining order. And she's like, I move around a lot. Like, they're like, this is suspicious. And she has an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
And she's just like, it's my life. Like, people get obsessed with me and I have to move. What? Like, she just plays it off like it's so not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I swear I have met people who just casually have dropped into conversations like, oh yeah, like people just get obsessed with me. He's so obsessed with me.
But like usually when people say that, people aren't really that obsessed with them. They just think they are.
Yeah, but Francesca's just kind of deadpan like, I don't know, like men, women, they all just kind of get attached.
Just love me. And once again, you're like, why? It cuts back to TJ at home in the kitchen. And he's like cooking and singing to himself. And he has the oven door open because he's going to put something in. And Caryn was like, what if the chair tries to push him into the oven door or like into the oven? That would be amazing.
With his little foot thing.
Yeah. And then suddenly the chair starts scuffling towards him and flips the little footrest thing open. And we're just like, yes.
I loved it so much. And scuffling is such a good word. That's like the sounds that it made. One of my favorite books of all time is a Red Dwarf book. Like, I think that they were written after the TV show came out and the show's creators started writing these novels, and they're amazing. And in one of them, they talk about this race of kind of monsters called polymorphs that were like objects that were given life, I guess. And everything was all hunky-dory until one day a man came home and found his armchair on top of his wife. And he shot it while the armchair was still struggling back into its upholstery. And every time that the chair, like, menaced someone, that's all I could think about.
That's amazing.
But for real, read the Red Dwarf books by Grant Naylor. They're fantastic.
I want to now. I miss Saturday night Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
So TJ's cooking dinner and he hears shuffling and the chair is getting closer and closer to him in the background. And then it rams him into the oven door. So it doesn't push him into the oven.
Which is a tragedy.
But like rams his shins into the oven door and like breaks his legs.
And there's like, it lifts up its little foot thingy and one of its springs sort of comes out the way that you might wield a knife.
Yeah. Like It's very, I'm gonna shank you. Like, so he calls Francesca, who's with the police. The cops take her home. They open, and the apartment's full of smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing because he was cooking.
Yeah.
But they don't really explain, like, they don't show them put out a fire. And TJ is in the bathroom screaming, like, in the bathtub. He's, like, screaming and crying, and you can tell he's, like, bloody. So Francesca goes to him. The cop sees blood and walks into the living room and, like, sees the chair just, like, staring at him. Then the old man is on the phone, and he's telling someone that he found a Dybbuk. He's like, Dad, I have the gift just like you.
His dad's like, well,
He's
if
like,
it is a Dybbuk, you better not get involved. Just like let it go.
Everybody else deal with it.
Yeah. And he's like, you didn't touch it, did you?
Yeah.
And the old man just hangs on the phone.
Like, oh, no. But like, he's like, you didn't touch it, did he? He's like, no. And then looks at the camera like, I felt like this scene, it was like a whiny teenager talking to their dad. Like, but Dad, just listen. No, it's not like that. Like, why won't you just listen to me? And it's like, this is an 80-year-old man arguing with a 100-year-old man. Like, it just didn't quite fit. It didn't work.
And because the chair was not in this scene.
And the chair was not in this scene, so I had no cares.
Yeah.
So then it cuts to Francesca's FaceTiming Maxie, who finally says, my grandpa. And then, you know, like, and his new girlfriend, and you're like, oh, okay. It's the grandpa, and this woman he's been hanging out with is his girlfriend.
Yeah, because
like,
Ashanti, like,
kind of,
she leans into the frame behind Maxie and is like, oh, hello, this is how we're connected.
Yes. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's all coming together a little bit. So Francesca says, TJ thinks the recliner is haunted. And they just kind of laugh about it a little bit. Like, they're like, oh, yeah, it's the recliner. Ha, ha, ha. And then it cuts to TJ.
And this might be one of the best scenes in the whole entire movie.
It might be. It is the best scene. Well, no, there's another one that might rival it later.
Yeah. But... okay, I'm with you. This is the second best scene in the movie.
The whole movie. So TJ's like calling for his mom. Again, like a whiny teenager. Mom!
Yeah, because he apparently doesn't live with Francesca. Which...
Well, he does, but I think they said during the phone call, the FaceTime call, that he had gone back to his parents who live only a few blocks away.
Oh, okay.
Because he was scared of the reclining chair and didn't want to be at their house. So he's calling for his mom. He gets up. He's walking on canes just to emphasize the fact that his feet are broken because the chair rammed him into the oven.
He's got like 2 casts.
Yeah, he's got like 2 casts. He's on canes. He gets up and he's like walking with these canes, and all of a sudden you see a spring reach up and tap on the window. Like a big fat, like would be in a couch spring. And it's just knocking on the window. And TJ like sees it, and he walks over to the window and sees the chair like on the street. Away. Yeah. So he opens the window and he leans out and he sees the chair just like staring up. So he like freaks out and tries to slam the window shut. And that giant spring stops the window from closing.
Because it's like the spring is independent of the chair. Like it can run around on its own.
I don't know. They didn't explain the spring. But the spring stops the window from closing. And then TJ's laying on his bed, and the spring just like appears over his head. And then the scene cuts out. And you're just like, oh man, that's amazing. So it shows the spring above TJ's head, and then it cuts to an egg smashing. And the grandpa's girlfriend's like cooking and cracking eggs. But like, as the spring is coming down on TJ, it's like egg smash. So then it cuts back to TJ, and what can only be described as Ghostbuster lights are streaming all around the sky while the grandpa and the girlfriend are watching on their computer the guy explain about the Dybbuk.
Mm-hmm.
And the lights are a combination like Ghostbusters and Hocus Pocus, where they're like streaming in the window. and it's really 90s style graphics or 80s. Like, it was pretty low quality.
Budget.
Yeah.
This whole movie is like made on a shoestring.
But the lights are like swirling around TJ and like in and out of his eyes and all that kind of stuff. Ghostbuster style.
Mm-hmm.
And then cuts to the old man.
Yeah, his girlfriend Ashanti is leading him in some kind of meditation / hypnosis to help him go back in time and see what happened.
Yeah. So he sees the chair and he sees a girl in the woods. He finds like a towel wrapped around a flower.
So much of it, I was just like, what?
What is happening? And it was all just like flashes of random stuff. So he finds this flower and then he sees the girl and she runs up to another lady, grabs a knife out of this lady's bread basket and slices her own throat.
Mm-hmm.
And he wakes up to Ashanti like looming over him. Like, it's just the most awkward, weird angle of her face.
Okay, this was great. So Ashanti is in this tiny, tiny square in the middle of a black screen. And then it all of a sudden zooms in really fast so that she takes up the whole screen.
Yes.
And I loved it.
It was so great. It worked really well. Even though no sofa, couch, recliner
Yeah, this was
in
hilarious.
this, it still worked really well. Yes.
And she says, whoever has that recliner is in great danger.
Yes. And the old man's like, oh no. So Francesca wakes up and sees her panties on the floor. And immediately you're like, what did the chair do?
Exactly.
So then she sees the shadow of a man like sniffing her underwear. And then she goes to look and he disappears. And then she wakes up again and it's like none of it had happened.
Yeah, it's another dream.
Yes, another dream within a dream. So she wakes up, the power's out, which we weren't sure if it was because of the Ghostbuster situation at TJ's.
Yeah, it was like a few blocks away or something, so it could have been.
The power was out for some reason. So she goes to grab a flashlight out of her nightstand and immediately shines it right at her face, Luke Skywalker style, and turns it on.
It takes her a minute. It's like she's shining it in her face and she's all confused, like, why is it so bright in here? And then it takes her a second to turn it around.
It was really, like, you just get, she's not the sharpest tool in the shed. So she finally figures out the flashlight, bless her little heart, and gets up to look around, and the chair moves. Like, as she's looking around, she, like, distinctly sees the chair move. So she freaks out. She calls Maxie, and she's sitting on the front porch, and Maxie pulls up, and she's like, why didn't you call TJ? And she's like, he didn't answer his phone. And so Maxie goes to investigate, and the chair's just sitting there. So she's like, I don't know, you're crazy, but come stay at my house. So Francesca goes to stay with Maxie. They're getting in the car, and Maxie looks up, and the chair is just watching them from the balcony. Oh, no, maybe they don't see it. Yeah, the camera just pans up, and the chair's just watching them from the balcony.
Like standing up like a person. Ugh. I love it so much.
The only thing that could have made this better was like menacing music.
Yeah.
Like more menacing than it was. Like it was a little, but I wanted like, think twice before you touch my girl. Or something. Because it would have fit so perfectly. But like, it was just ridiculous. So the chair is very upset. So cuts to TJ's mom is vacuuming. I can't. So TJ's mom is vacuuming, and she like opens his door, and she asks him something as she opens his door, like, "Do you want lunch or something?" And it closes, like it zooms in a close up on the vacuum, like the canister that holds all the dirt and stuff, and you see an eyeball get sucked into it.
Yep. And all this
and
like hair
all this, like,
and gore.
Hair and flesh and stuff. But the eyeball was the best part. And then you just hear the mom scream.
Yeah. It was at this point in the film that Kelly, who was watching it with us, he was like, you know what?
He's like, I'm out.
I'm
I'm
it.
done. I can't take it.
He chose to go downstairs and run on the treadmill instead of finishing this film.
Silly Kelly.
But you know what? You gotta know your limits. You gotta know, like, when
All
you're
right.
good. Yeah.
I'm out. Yeah. It was a good turning point. So Francesca then goes home and just stares at the chair for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's just standing in her living room, staring down this chair. And then she gets the phone call and the police ask her to come down to the station. As she's leaving, a guy shows up. There's no explanation about who this guy is, but he's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a really long time. And she's like, what do you want? He's like, you know what I want. And like points at his ring finger. And she's like, I'm not going to marry you. And he's like, but you need to marry me. Like, she kind of says, like, but I don't even really know you. Like,
She says she has a boyfriend.
she says she has a boyfriend. And she's just like, no, I'm not going to marry you. Like, stop asking me, yada, yada, yada. And like, but just treats it like a casual annoyance. Like, she's not freaked out in any way. She's just like, no, I'm not going to marry you.
It's like she's super used to Ralph. This guy is Ralph, and every other man in the world just showing up and being like, hey, you gonna marry me or what?
Yeah. When he's like, you should have my babies. And she's like, I'm too young to have babies. And it's like, she's like late 20s. So no, but I don't know how old she's supposed to be. No idea. But then he's like, I heard what happened to TJ. You should marry me because I have strong bones, unlike TJ.
And our children will have strong bones.
Yeah, and our children will have strong bones. And she's just like, no, I'm too young to have kids. And just walks away. Francesca drives me nuts. And this scene just made it worse.
So Ralph takes it upon himself to let himself
break
into the
in.
house. Yeah.
Yeah. As any normal person would do, breaks into her apartment.
Yeah.
So she gets to the police station. They hand her a list of names. And they're like, which of these people could have killed TJ? Because his mom just sucked up his eyeball in the vacuum cleaner and he didn't make it.
Yeah.
And she's not even upset.
No one in this movie has reasonable emotional responses to anything.
Nothing. She's not upset at all. She looks over the list and circles the name of of Ralph, who she says is her cousin.
It's Maxie's cousin.
Oh, good. Okay. I thought it was her, like, they did not specify that very well.
Okay.
I thought it was Francesca's cousin. And I was like, the crap? Okay. Maxie's cousin makes it so much better.
So, a little.
Trust me, so much better than Francesca's own cousin being obsessed with her and wanting to marry her.
Okay, yes, when you put it like that, yes, it's better.
But still, he's just, he's a man. He can't help it. He has to be obsessed with her because all men are.
And the cops think that Frederico's death and TJ's death have to be related.
Yes.
Because two people who were like obsessed with or involved with Francesca have died.
Yes. And within a short period of time.
Yeah.
So they're pretty sure. They're like, okay, we need to find Ralph. So Ralph is in the apartment planting cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Or checking on his already planted cameras.
Is that what he was doing in the beginning? Because he like walked out of the bathroom and lit a match. So
well,
he's just making himself
He's
at
just
home.
making himself at home. I just know he took out like the fire alarm and adjusted like a camera in there and put it back.
Yeah.
So the whole time the chair is watching him, right?
Yeah.
So as he's planting a camera in the fire alarm, the chair follows him and menacingly stares him down.
And here comes
the
best scene.
So, well, weird, and then it gets better. So Ralph gets into Francesca's bed. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, first, Ralph gets into Francesca's closet and retrieves a hat, like a sun hat, and a bra. And then he lays them on her bed. So it's like the bra over the sun hat, and he kind of like pushes in the top of the sun hat. So it's like indented. And then he climbs on top of it and pulls the comforter over himself. Like completely covers him like he's in a little cave.
Completely covered in a little cave with the bra and the sun hat. And then proceeds to make noises.
Yeah. And the comforter's all moving around.
Well, in her bed. So the chair is slowly approaching him at this time.
I loved the chair's entrance so much. Because it's the angle of the camera is like, perpendicular to the door. So you just see the chair
Like,
lean sideways.
Like peek its head into the door.
With its absurd eyes.
Like, what you doing, buddy? So then it sees what Ralph is doing and comes in the room and grabs an iron and hits Ralph with it.
Yep.
How, I don't know. But it does it.
With its little recliner arms. I don't know.
Yeah. With its little coils that are menacing as well.
Yeah. He's got opposable coils.
So he hits Ralph with the iron. The chair hits Ralph with the iron. Cuts to the old man and his girlfriend trying to find the chair.
They're doing a bang up job. Like, they're making valiant efforts.
They're making lots of phone calls. Old man says, what's the name of Maxie's friend? Vanessa?
Patricia.
And then his girlfriend's like, no, Francesca. And he's like, it's too confusing.
And I was like, I'm right there with you, buddy. This is all very confusing.
So then it cuts to Francesca and Maxie are at Maxie's apartment. And Francesca says she needs to know the recliner's okay. And she says it as like a possessed person. Like, she's like, no, can we please just go check on the recliner? I need to know that he's okay.
And Maxie's like, you're hurting me.
Yeah, Maxie's like, what are you doing? Then Francesca just drops it. Like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to go. It's my sister's birthday. I better call her. Like,
and Maxie's just giving her the side eye. Like, what is the matter with you?
What just happened? Cuts to Officer Gravy watching more Federico videos. So then his partner comes in, and that's when they talk about, she's like, what are you doing here? Like, go home. And he's like, my wife left me. I don't have any reason to go home. I'm just going to keep working. And she's like, that's just sad. Like, go home. And
she's like, why don't you come over to my place? We'll drink some wine. We'll blow off some steam together. And he's like, nah.
Yeah. And she looks very disappointed.
So this is like the one scene where they address the quote unquote heartbroken detectives from the film description. I wouldn't call his partner heartbroken so much as like slightly spurned, I guess.
Well, and she doesn't even really seem that upset about it.
No.
So then the cop is watching more Federico videos.
Federico's videos are amazing.
They are amazing.
The first one just shows him like slamming a horror movie, and I'm like, oh, hey, it's us.
Yeah.
And then the one that Gravy's watching now, Federico is like reviewing one of those swords you would buy at the mall.
Yes. And like sometimes he gets really into the occult, and sometimes he's like, yeah, talking about random swords and horror movies. It's just a very interesting website with videos.
Yeah.
He seems very eclectic. So they see the recliner in the background of Federico's video. So then it cuts to Grandpa, who tells Maxie the recliner is possessed and Francesca's in trouble.
And Maxie's reaction to this is basically like, like, that's it.
Yeah. And Grandpa's like grunting and she's like, I'll go check.
Yeah.
Like, fine, I'll go.
So she goes to Francesca's apartment alone, despite having just been told the recliner's possessed and clearly having believed it because she's like, oh, I knew it. I knew something was off.
And this is hands down the best scene in the whole movie.
Really? Better than...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Right. So she's standing in the living room and she sees Ralph's body being dragged across the patio. And she's like, what? And she walks closer. And she sees it's the chair dragging his body. And the chair, like, props him up and throws him over the balcony.
This was pretty good. The way they did it was so clever because it kept cutting between the chair and Maxie watching the chair.
Yes.
So every time they cut back to the chair, it's in a different position, like hoisting Ralph's body upward. And then Ralph's body is kind of like over the chair's shoulder. And then the chair is standing up and heaving. So
yeah, it was magical. And so then it cuts back to Maxie's face, and then it cuts back to the chair, and the chair is staring Maxie down. Then the chair proceeds to chase her down the hallway. And she crawls out the bathroom window because she's like, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And while the chair is watching her crawl out the window through the bathroom keyhole, how is this not the best scene in the movie?
It's pretty great. I will say this is pretty great, but for me, the chair leaning in at an angle through the door was the best shot in the whole film.
I don't know. The chair looking through the keyhole might be my favorite. Or like the shot of it like propped up with Ralph's body over its shoulder.
The chair is
just
determined.
So good. I know. Those of you who have seen this movie, tell us what your favorite scene is. Settle this debate for us.
We would appreciate that.
So Maxie is crawling out the bathroom window and falls because there wasn't really anything outside the bathroom window, no ledge or anything.
Yeah.
So she falls, lands directly into a garbage can, which like folds her in half nice and neat, and the can lid just shuts.
Yeah.
The end. It was so magical.
And you presume that she is dead.
And you only know she's in the garbage can because it shows her shoes right before the garbage can lid shuts.
Did you notice that her shoes were red?
No.
I loved it because it was I thought it was like maybe a play on the ruby red slippers underneath the house, because it's like a single red Chuck Taylor All-Star.
Yeah. I can see that comparison. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty great. So Francesca is in Maxie's apartment all by herself. And she starts hearing noises. So she goes to investigate.
Which you would do, yeah.
Yeah, strange whispering, which leads her to the kitchen. And she realizes the whispering is coming from the drain in the kitchen sink. Cut to her apartment, and the chair is whispering to her through the kitchen sink.
And how far apart do Francesca and Maxie live? All I could think about was like, how far is this
How many
voice?
sinks is it chanting into?
Exactly. Like some random person's like making coffee and just hears, Valerie.
And yeah, the chair is just whispering really loudly. And you're like, who the crap is Valerie?
Yeah.
So the cops come as she's listening to the sink, and it scares her, and she bumps her head a little bit. So they all decide to go to Francesca's apartment because she's like, something's wrong with Maxie. She's been gone for like 2 hours. She should be here. They go to Francesca's apartment. It's all dark. They find Max's keys on the floor, and the chair's just sitting there like watching them. So they try to call Maxie, and they hear ringing, and they can tell it's coming from like below the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
The cops find Ralph's body just like strung up, but like covered by a tarp somehow. Did the chair cover Ralph with a tarp?
I think so. I think after Maxie escaped, the chair went downstairs and found a tarp and like carefully put it over Ralph's body.
Covered over Ralph's
with
body.
Its little opposable springs.
Yep. So Ralph's body is all covered with a tarp. The cops find Ralph's body. Francesca's on the balcony, and the chair starts chanting to her. Like his little mouth is moving. It's really great. Francesca runs out because does she see Ralph's body? Anyway, she's outside the apartment and sees the chair and Ralph's ghost in the window.
Yeah.
And so she gets in Maxie's car and drives away.
Like, what was Ralph's ghost doing there?
No idea.
I was trying to decide if, like, we never see TJ's ghost.
Nope.
Like, is Ralph's ghost hanging around because, like the recliner, he's obsessed with Francesca?
Well, later it says, spoiler alert, later it says the chair collects souls.
Oh.
So I think it had collected Ralph's soul.
But not TJ's, though.
I don't know. Apparently not.
I'm just over here looking for plot holes in a movie about a killer armchair. Don't
But
mind
it
me.
doesn't really, it wasn't consistent. We never saw, like, Frederico's ghost or, you know what I mean? Like, it was very choosy about who was a ghost. So Francesca drives off to the ocean and is standing on a cliffside.
For some reason.
It does that thing that happens in scary movies where if somebody's on a cliff, it like zooms in on the rocks below and you're like, is she gonna jump?
Yeah.
And then her phone rings and it's the grandpa and he's like, we need to talk.
The whole cliff driving scene, there was no point to that.
None
whatsoever. I don't, like, they just want an excuse to go to the sea and like write it off for production. So everyone's like, let's go have a day at the cliffs.
And it was a good, here's a good shot of New Zealand. Like, it was a spot that I was like, ooh, I want to go there. Pretty. Grandpa sits her down, hands her the "Trust Me, I'm a Rabbi" mug that they're both drinking out of. And that's when Corinne and I are like, so is he a rabbi?
Yeah.
Because they've not mentioned it once this whole time.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't understand. Why am I seeing ghosts? And he's like, what do you mean? And then she's like, and I keep hearing Valerie. What's the name Valerie? And he's like, Valerie, you must mean this obscure story about Valerie and Gerard, these witches from the Middle Ages.
How on, like, did I was I can't
Valerie
even talk.
is such a common name. There
so
are rock
confused.
songs called Valerie. But you hear the name Valerie and immediately think of this obscure story about witches from the Middle Ages.
He puts it together so fast. This man who could not remember that his granddaughter's best friend was named Francesca and not Patricia
Yeah.
can put this together like that.
Yeah. It was
So-
very bizarre, and it only gets worse. So,
I don't know if this is a real couple or if they just made this up.
no idea. Yeah. Yes. So they talk about Gerard and Valerie. And as he's telling this story, you're like, oh, these are the people that he saw like running through the woods. So Valerie and Gerard would like poison people using this flower, oleander, that is the flower that the grandpa found in the towel in the woods. And so they're tying all of his weird crap together.
I mean, for a movie about a killer chair, this is the point where it really super went off the rails.
Yes.
Because they had like this giant info dump and they were like, okay, here's where we're going to explain everything.
But it didn't really work. But anyway.
Oh, no, I totally agree. Like, this was very strange. And it all went so fast that my notes couldn't even hardly keep up. So the old man explains that Valerie, after she and Gerard were found out for being murderers, Gerard gets burned at the stake, and Valerie goes into the woods and grabs that knife out of the girl's basket and kills herself. And the girl who was carrying the basket is someone named Marie St. Clair, who turns out to be Francesca's great-great-grandmother or something.
Which she knows right away.
Yeah.
Like, they say her name. Oh, that's my great-grandmother.
And did she say great-grandmother?
Or great-great-grandmother.
It still feels like not enough greats.
Right.
For how, like, old-timey
Yes.
the flashbacks
Yes.
were. So she's like, oh, hey, that's Marie St. Clair, my grandmother. And then old man explains to Francesca, who knows that Marie St. Clair was her grandmother, but apparently knows nothing else about her, that she, like, went into a convent and became a nun and always had this gift about her that people would become obsessed with her. So that's why she went into the convent. And Francesca's like, oh, hey, me too.
Isn't that weird?
So apparently the old man, again, puts this stuff together lightning fast, that clearly Valerie's spirit had inhabited Marie St. Clair and passed down through the generations and was now inhabiting Francesca.
Yes.
And that's why
And then he
everyone's obsessed with
says,
her.
we have to build 2 boxes. And he draws a chart of 2 squares.
Mhm.
And he's like, we need to trap the souls, and draws little circles in the squares. And then he's like, and then we need to set those boxes on fire, and like scribbles on the squares. It was the most magical explanation I've ever seen in my life.
He makes plans like I make plans.
Yeah. And then he's like, it's going to be a long night.
And they need 2 boxes because Gerard's spirit apparently somehow the old man decides is inhabiting the chair. So
Yeah.
after having possessed Frederico.
And then they're like, but the weird thing is that they need a person to possess. That's a mystery. And you're like, well, clearly, Frederico is in the chair. We all know this.
Yeah.
We saw the back alley surgical room in the beginning.
The old man puts together
So-
everything except for the fact that Frederico is definitely inside the chair.
Right. So it cuts to Officer Gravy doing push-ups in front of a laptop with a zoomed in picture of Francesca's face.
Yeah, he's very
That's
very
it.
into her.
They're just setting up that he's obsessed with her. Then it cuts to his partner sitting in a car all by herself, zoomed in on a picture of his face. And that's the first time that you're like, oh, she likes Oh, okay. She never really acted that way. There were no like moments between them. No her gazing at him longingly. No nothing.
Yeah, just that offer to like blow off steam, which could have been like knocking boots, or it could have been like come over and play Wii bowling with me.
Right. Like nothing. And she didn't make it sound romantic or sexy in any way. Yeah. So literally this came out of nowhere. That she's just staring at his picture and longingly
gazing.
So then Francesca has a vision of her own about occult things, a bloody knife, wakes up, and Grandpa's clutching his chest.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much.
And he's reaching for the aspirin bottle, and no one will hand it to him. So he's like reaching out, and it keeps zooming in on the aspirin bottle. And Francesca's like, I'll get help. And he's like, no. And then the girlfriend comes in, and he's like sitting on the couch now, and he's still reaching for the aspirin bottle. And the girlfriend's like calling 911 and like, hey, we need an ambulance. And like, he just wants an aspirin.
Yeah.
Which is a typical, you have a heart attack, you take an aspirin, you know, like it's a thing that helps.
But all Francesca was concerned about is let me take this box you built and like a thing of gasoline and GTFO.
Yep. She has no cares about Grandpa having a heart attack. So the cops find the back alley surgeon, and he explains that he cut off Frederico's feet and thought homeboy would go to the hospital.
Yeah, and he made him sign a contract, like, if you die...
I have a contract saying I'm not liable, and the police are like, that's not how that works when you kill someone. And he's like, I didn't kill anybody. He was alive when I left him. He just didn't have his feet.
Yeah.
How? Why is this a thing? So he just keeps saying he was alive when I left him. He's not dead. The girl cop, whose name I can't remember all of a sudden, Gray.
I think Gray.
Gray and Gravy.
Uh-huh.
So Gray goes to Ralph's apartment, and there's like pictures of Francesca everywhere, and they see his computer, and he's got a live feed to Francesca's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
She looks at old videos and sees like the chair moving. And so she's like, oh no, and runs out of there. So then Francesca goes to her apartment, puts the box down, and just starts screaming at the chair, get in the box! Get in the box!
Like, that's
Please
definitely gonna work.
So then she starts dousing the chair in gasoline, and you can see that the landlord is watching the video live. So she's dousing the chair in gasoline, and this is the best part. She starts trying to light matches. So she lights a match, holds it out to the chair, and the chair blows it out.
Yeah.
And she does this like 4 or 5 times.
And the chair just keeps going.
Yeah. And instead of just like lighting the match and throwing it at the chair before he can blow it out, she just holds it out so he can blow it out every time.
Just starts crying because it's so hopeless.
And she's just like, I just wanted to burn the chair. The chair then starts shuffling towards her, and stands up.
Yeah.
So it's like a full tall person.
But it doesn't stand up on like its recliner feet, like, you know, the little bit that's touching your floor. It stretches itself up and tips up onto its front edge, and then its like recliner part swings out its footrest, and then it's tiptoeing on the footrest like a ballerina.
Yes. And is walking towards her. She's standing there all scared, and the cop comes in and shoots the chair.
Mm-hmm. Shoots the chair. I exploded with laughter. I don't know why I thought it was so freaking funny.
It was so funny. And somehow that doesn't catch it on fire with the gasoline. But that's... Anyway, so then the chair front falls off, and there is a faceless corpse.
Why was it missing the face? I don't get this.
I don't know why the face was missing.
Like, it looked like Hannibal Lecter had gotten to it so he could wear it in an ambulance.
Yes.
It was totally cut off.
Totally cut off the face. And also, if you had a chair with a corpse in it,
it would smell very bad.
It would smell so bad. Remember when they opened the storage unit and it stunk so bad?
Yeah.
So then she had this chair in her apartment
for like 2 weeks.
It was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Again.
But again, the faceless corpse was hysterical. It should not have been funny, but it was hilarious.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they meant it to be funny.
It was so great. I don't know if they were steering into the skit at this point, but it worked really well. Francesca goes into the bathroom and just starts crying. You had stated earlier, I was confused about this. So you had stated earlier that her family line is possessed by Valerie.
Yeah.
But then she's in the bathroom and she's crying, and Valerie's ghost grabs her and possesses her.
Yeah.
So she's possessed by her twice?
I don't get this either. Like, yeah, I don't get it. So, like, it could be that it was, like, attached to her and followed her around.
So she gets some side effects, but not necessarily possessed?
Yeah. And now it's, like, full on gonna take her over?
Maybe. Because she definitely gets full on possessed.
Yeah, Valerie's behind the steering wheel now.
Yes. So Maxie then crawls out of the garbage can with the largest shard of glass sticking out of her face. Like,
it's enormous.
It's enormous. And she walks into the room where all the police officers are. Francesca's there. No one says one thing about the glass in her face. And Francesca just hugs her and she's like, there you are.
And the cop's like, are you okay?
Clearly
No.
she's not okay.
She has a thing of glass in her face.
Giant shard of glass in her face. And as Francesca's holding Maxie, she like smiles at a mirror.
Yeah.
Like, menacingly.
Yeah.
It cuts to the police officer and Francesca sitting in her apartment. And Francesca looks noticeably different.
Uh-huh. She's like...
heavier makeup.
Yeah. Her hair's all sleeky.
Her hair's all... Yeah. She looks all done up for the evening. And she's making tea for the cop. And immediately, you know it's poison tea.
It has
It's
a giant
flower in it. Who just drinks a cup of water with a giant flower in it? Is that how tea is made?
I don't know.
I've only ever made the little ground up dried leaves. I don't... Anyway, so he's drinking this cup of flour. And he's like, why did you decide to keep the chair? And Francesca's like, oh, well, you know, the dead body's gone. And so I decided I like it. Like, it's just so weird.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know why, right? Because it's the Dybbuk and she wants her boyfriend and yada yada. But
the cop is not concerned.
Person would keep this chair.
Yeah. And I think the cop's like, I don't really care about the chair. I am making small talk until I can get her out of that dress.
Yes, exactly. It cuts to a video of the magician, occult guy, saying how Dybbuks hold souls until a new host body can be found. So the chair is holding on to souls until they can find a new host body. And then it cuts back to the cop who, like, has been poisoned and he's dying.
Yeah.
And the Ghostbuster lights come in again and start transferring these souls into the cop's body.
Yeah.
The girl cop then walks in and Francesca kills her. Well, she like starts to hit her and then the guy cop snaps her neck.
Francesca sneaks up behind her and puts a knife in her back.
Yes.
And then the cop's like, let me just snap your neck real quick.
Snaps her neck. So Maxie sees all this from outside through the window. And so the old witch lovers reunite.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, yay, and hug and kiss, whatever.
They go skipping out into the street.
They go out into the street and walk off together. And
they get to start their new lives now. Isn't that romantic?
Yeah. And Maxie with like her head wound all draped and she's wearing like a neck brace because she fell like 3 stories into that garbage can.
Yeah.
Maxie goes into the apartment, sees the dead cop and the chair. And the chair's just like staring at her. And she stares back at the chair. And it fades into blackness.
She like locks eyes with the chair's reflecty button. And she can see movement in it. And it's Francesca who's like falling and flailing in the darkness.
Yes. Fades to black. The end.
The end. Oh my goodness.
Like, so that happened.
Yeah.
But seriously, worth watching to see the reclining chair kill people and like loom menacingly.
Yeah. The looming.
Totally worth it. peeking its head in the doorway and standing on the balcony staring at people. It's magical. It's so amazing.
We do definitely need anyone who has watched it or is going to report back to us and tell us if they liked the keyhole scene or the like leaning in diagonally through the door scene.
Keyhole dragging the dead body scene. All of it together.
Yeah, basically, was Ralph's death better or the disposal of Ralph's body? Both the scenes had to do with Ralph, I guess.
Yes.
But
both magical in different ways.
So if this is your first time discovering the podcast, hopefully you listen to us again.
We don't always watch this kind of magic.
But we always rate movies on 2 separate scales. Fright rating, how scary was it, on a scale based of 1 to 5, based on something scary in the movie. And the enjoyability factor, 1 to 5, based on something that we enjoyed while we were watching the movie. So Jill, on a scale from 1 to 5 sushi rolls, 5 being the highest, how much did you enjoy Killer Sofa?
I really loved all the sofa scenes, but the other scenes not so much. So, but I really loved the sofa scene. So like 3 and 4 is what I'm debating between.
I was going to give it a solid 3.
Okay. I was leaning towards 3 because I really loved the killer sofa scenes.
And pretty much from the scene where the grandpa is like, here's how it all works, I was ready for it to be over.
Yes.
Like, that it could have ended 20 minutes earlier and I would have been super fine with it. All I wanted to watch was the sofa killing people. So.
Agreed. I gave no cares about the people.
Yeah.
Why the sofa was killing people. None of that was important to me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see the sofa kill more people.
Exactly.
Yep.
So solid 3, though. Like, I super recommend people watch it. Watch it with a group of people.
Oh, yeah. Get sugared or liquored up and just enjoy it.
Because it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like I don't even have to ask, but I have to. Fright factor on a scale, she's already shaking her head, on a scale of 0 to 5 killer sofas. How scary was this film?
5. I'm never sleeping again.
I can't believe
I can't believe I'm sitting on a couch right now.
I blew
I'm
all
so
that money
terrified.
on a recliner couch, and when it gets here, I'm going to be afraid to sit on it.
I can't. It is a 0. It is absolutely a 0.
Not scary at all.
Not
Although,
scary at all.
I feel like Danielle should still just stay away from this one, Danielle. You will be more frightened of this than the tiger in the Jungle Book.
Yes.
But unless you... If you can handle any amount, it wasn't even that gory. Like,
no, it wasn't really gory. It wasn't really scary.
It was like
just
Evil
silly.
Dead level of gore.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of terrible, scary movies with my dad over the years, and I know for a fact 100% he would love this movie.
Oh,
because it is so ridiculous.
It was honestly great.
Yeah.
I wish that I wish things were different right now and we could have had a big Halloween party and watched this. But
yes, I feel like Caryn and I will be referencing this movie for years to come.
Oh, totally.
So
we'll talk about it as much as we do that Killin' Tools movie. Yes. Oh no, one of them is missing.
Yes.
So yeah, that was Killer Sofa. As good as the title told us it would be.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Hopefully you enjoyed listening to us talk about it as much as we enjoyed watching it. More. 5 stars worthy.
5 stars worth. Enjoyed us talking about it.
And if your podcast app allows you to do such things as rate podcasts, please do give us 5 stars. Don't forget to check us out on social media at Scream Girl Squad. That's where you can check in and let us know what scene you thought was the best.
Yes.
And as always, thanks for spending some time with us. That's it. Good night.
I don't know what to say. Bye.
Bye.
Watch out for sofas.